You got polio?
Yeah, and I heard it's quite contagious.
Oh, you have polio as well?
Yeah? You too?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. Recently, there has been a surge in polio cases in the city of Ottawa and nearby communities. I therefore urge you to take the appropriate precautions to prevent the spreading of this illness. Today, we are joined by Mr. Scientist. Mr. Scientist, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, my name is Mr. Scientist, and I'm a scientist.
Mr. Scientist specializes in the field of virology and has made several contributions to this field.
That's right.
Mr. Scientist, can you please briefly describe what polio is and what virus causes this illness?
For those of you who don't know, polio is caused by a virus called poliovirus. Poliovirus is an animal virus that is strictly human pathogen, which means it only infects humans. The polio illness can be very serious and can even lead to death, which is why it's important to visit your doctor when you start having symptoms of polio. The structure of the poliovirus is spherical in shape, and it measures 27 nanometers in diameter, which is very small. Just like many other viruses, polio has capsid and its genetic information. Polio's genetic material is an RNA strand attached to a VPG protein, which is a viral protein that is essential in the transcription from RNA to DNA. By the way, poliovirus is a retrovirus, which means it will follow the mechanism of action of retroviruses. It contains an RNA strand that needs to be transcribed into DNA. The DNA of the virus will then attach itself to the DNA of the animal cell inside the nucleus, where it will start the replication of the virus. The components of the virus will then assemble and escape the cell to attack nearby cells.
Thank you very much for your detailed description, Mr. Scientist. We will now skip to the symptoms of polio disease. Thank you once more for joining us today, Mr. Scientist.
It was my pleasure.
Here is an educational video released by the IVC, the International Viral Community, about the symptoms of polio disease. The seriousness of polio has 3 levels. As severity increases, so does the severity of the symptoms. Most people who contract polio don't exhibit symptoms. For example, Joe, an average office worker, goes on about his work completely oblivious of the fact that he is infected with polio. Others are less fortunate, however. John, among approximately 5% of all those who contracted polio, is showing signs of flu-like symptoms, such as a fever, headache, sore throat, and stomachache. About 1% of people with polio will experience symptoms like neck pain, stiffness, and severe headache. James, an industrial worker, is now confined to bed. In addition to a severe headache, he also exhibits decreased reflexes, and his muscles are weakened. This form of polio is called non-paralytic polio. The third and last type of polio is paralytic polio, which is much more severe than the other two. As the name implies, this form of polio usually involves paralysis and intense pain. Anyone who reaches this stage of polio will also experience extreme sensitivity to touch and muscle spasms. This form of polio can be deadly, as it might involve paralysis of muscles in the respiratory system. Polio is very contagious, and most people carrying this virus do not exhibit any symptoms at all. The virus can be transmitted through droplets from sneezing and coughing. It can also pass through feces or stool. Now that we know how this virus spreads, we can devise ways to prevent it. The most obvious way to stop spreading and contracting polio is by washing your hands regularly. Rinsing with soap will help wash off lipid substances that may house poliovirus. Always remember to wear PPE in public or crowded spaces. This is good, this is better, and this is starting to be misguided.
In spite of rising cases here in Ottawa, we still have good news. We have recently been informed that vaccines will be arriving very soon. The vaccine, which is an inactivated polio vaccine, was already shown to be 99% effective at preventing polio in only 3 doses. Pfizer has already taken charge of manufacturing over 2 million vaccines, which will be arriving in Ottawa in the coming 2 days. It is also worth noting that this is not the first outbreak of polio in history. Between 1948 and 1955, there has been several episodes of epidemics worldwide. People would stop meeting in public areas and children will remain at home. However, by 1995, polio was officially exterminated from North America and South America thanks to efforts to stop the spreading of this virus. In 2021, there were only 6 cases worldwide. The recent resurgence of poliovirus in Ottawa was met with awe from the international community, and efforts are being made right now to stop this disease from becoming a global pandemic. This is extremely difficult because most people who contracted poliovirus don't show any signs of being sick at all.
I am terribly sorry, sir, but I'm afraid you are not allowed to board this plane.
Why not?
Well, because you are showing signs of polio.
I don't have a fever and I am not coughing.
Most people who contracted polio don't show any sign of polio, which is why you are not allowed on this plane.
What? I hope this podcast episode was helpful and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call us at 514-695-1293.